Who has been my partner in field research. He speaks a lot better Mandarin than I do. His family has been in Padungan for many, many years. So John, in this book also you will see a lot of beautiful photographs, and these were mainly taken, but the beautiful ones were mainly taken by G4, who is sitting right there. Beautiful one is always mine. And the third one, you also see a lot of illustrations, beautiful illustrations by a very talented lady called Gabrielle. Gabrielle is there, right there. And of course, a lot more people whom I've interviewed and spoken to who have graciously consented to share their memories of Padungan and what was there before what we see today. I think a very, very sincere thank you to all of you for all your help. I think we have done a great piece of work that will hopefully be passed down to our future generations. That's exactly what we've done.
It is important to document our heritage for three main reasons. Among them, Sarawakians to know and appreciate their own history, culture, and tradition, as well as identity. Secondly, we can also identify endangered heritage, be it art, craft, skill, trades, etc. So if possible, intervention can be taken to safeguard them. And this can only be done by writing, or those who are willing to sit down and then do a little bit of research and pen all those documents. Thirdly, by documenting and communicating our history and heritage to visitors or to tourists, we can create more engaging experience for them. Once again, I wish to extend my heartiest congratulations to Mr. James Yong for a job well done. Let's give him a
You would notice basically, you would be able to recognize most of these buildings today. I just want to show it as a reflection of what Padungan is today. You know, whether it's the white cat that you're familiar with, or the iconic MBK's building, or the shopping in Padungan Bazaar, or the arch, or the hills, or Hilton and Riverside. This is the Padungan that we know today. But I think back to my own boyhood, and I think Dr. Sri and I are in the same generation. Although I have no idea.
There's a really chopper vibe.
These pictures reflect some of my own personal connections to Padungan. I'll show you a little bit. The picture on the top left shows you a scene that's no longer existent. You see Odeon Cinema, and opposite that you see Capitol Cinema. Some of you may know where that is, but those who don't, I'll tell you. Capitol Cinema is now Wisma Tun Juga. Odeon Cinema is a site where the new building is coming up. So that is what it looked like back in the 60s and 70s. There was a Happy World amusement. I'm cheating a little bit because I wasn't born when Happy World was actually around. They had just closed, and the Juma school that took over the premises was still using the stadium, and they were also running wrestling matches, boxing matches, Tai Chi. There was one very notable competition I remember, a Tai Chi master versus a Kung Fu guy. Now I can't remember who won, because it was the fight of the decade. Then you have old and familiar names like Chin Yan Che in Padungan, which has been around for generations and generations. selling mooncakes, pastries, everything. Everybody knows them, right? Fui Lit was once in the Odeon Arcade. The Odeon building was not just a cinema, it was also an arcade, it was also a restaurant, and lots of things happening there. And Fui Lit was one of the most arcade shops back there. Most of us who do any sports or any competition would probably have a little trophy that came from Fui Lit. Right? And the chocolate bag that Dr. Sri mentioned, I had a chocolate bag exactly like this, and gave me a little bit more freedom to wander around and explore the land. And I think the chocolate bag was bought from a shop called either Eng Hua or Tiang Bi Hit. The boss of Tiang Bi Hit is here, in fact, already in the audience. Yay! Welcome. So what triggered me to write this book? Of all the places in Kuching and Sarawak to write about, what triggered me? I must say it was somebody else. And the editor of a very familiar magazine, who suggested to me back in 2018, why don't you write about a place in Kuching? Why not Padungan? So I said, oh, okay, I can think about it. So it started to bring back a whole wave of memories that I have of Padungan from my childhood. And slowly I started to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And in the end, it was too much for an article. In fact, until today, I've never written out the article. It became a book 3 years later. I just want to share with you 10 random facts about Padungan. Yeah? 10 random but interesting facts about Padungan that I learned through my research. Some I think you may know, some may be new to you. But do you realize that once upon a time, in the early 19th century, there were at least 2 Iban settlements in Padungan. One at what they call the Padungan Creek, which is where the Padungan River comes in, and the other one at Bukit Mata Kuching. Yeah. The Padungan Creek ones were the Sibuyao Ibans, who were settled there very early in the 19th century. The ones at Bukit Mata Kuching were the Balau Ibans. They came from Banting. And they came, very specifically, we know they came in 1858. Why 1858? Because 1857 was a very significant year in Sarawak history. It was the year of the Lao Chinese Coal Miners Rebellion, which almost brought down the Brooke government. And after it was over, as a kind of a defense mechanism, our friend James Brooke basically asked the Ibans there to, since you helped put down this rebellion, put a little force of yours in Kuching, on Bukit Mata Kuching, overlooking the Chinese area. The second interesting fact is that, do you realize that Padungan Road actually starts next to the Tokekong Temple? If you look back at old maps, for instance, this one is from 1890. It shows Padungan Road starting next to the old temple, the Tokekong Temple. And today, of course, that road has been renamed as Jalan Bukit Mata. But that was the old road that, if you come from the main bazaar, you want to go to that Ulu area of Padungan, you would have to go up this road, which was up an incline, up the Bukit Mata hill, and then go down the other end to reach Padungan. So Padungan was actually a relatively little access area. It was, if you're living in town, what business would you have to go to Padungan anyway? In the 19th century, you realize that sago was the key export of Sarawak. Now we hardly hear of it, but you can see statistics from Sarawak, Gazette, and other things. Sago was #1 up there, and sago obviously comes from Muka, Oya, Dala, that kind of area. But they were brought to Kuching, especially in the Padungan area, where they were processing factories, just as the illustration that Gabriel did here, on how they process it. From the sago logs that they are stuck by the boats into Kuching. Then I go to the Padungan Arch. How many times do you think you drive past the Padungan Arch every month? For me, probably close to 50 times, up and down, up and down. But how many have actually stopped to kind of reflect on what could have been written on these arches? And what's been written are different on 2 sides. There are 2 very well-known calligraphers, Mr. Sim Po Yao and the late Mr. David Yang Vun, who pen very nice couplets, Chinese couplets in calligraphy on one side and the other side. And in the book, I have actually translated the whole thing into English so that more people can appreciate what was it. One of them talked about, Nanyang as the promised land, southern seas, that. And the other one talked about the talented people of Sarawak, Kuching in particular. Number 5, I will quote the songbirds. If you walk on Padungan Bazaar, look up once in a while, look up at the facade of the shop, traditional shops, and once in a while you spot little creatures like this, usually birds, some animals as well. This, if you see one of these on the rooftop, it means that block was built by this guy called Song Keng Hai. Song Keng Hai was a very early pioneer in Sarawak, and a tycoon, a businessman, a philanthropist. Dato Sri had mentioned that Song Keng Hai grounds was actually a piece of land, huge piece of land, donated by him back to the government to be used for recreational and sports purposes. You will see the Clock Tower Memorial. I think it has been renewed a little bit by MBKS with new plaques and all that. So I think I'm very happy for that because you can start enjoying the history of it. But what happened? Why was this memorial set up? It was set up after the Japanese occupation in memory of the people who had lost their lives during those 3.5 years, especially also dedicated to the memory of the Chief Secretary of the colonial government at that time. But what people also don't know is that who designed this? PWD in those days held a competition where they asked people, you're a designer, design me a monument. And the person who won the competition is a guy called Egbert Ding, who is still alive. I contacted him, he lives in Singapore now. His son got in touch with me, and even he showed me a picture of the letter that the colonial government sent him saying that he won the competition. So very, very significant. And the reason why it was so important for Egbert, the reason why he tried so hard to win this competition was because his own brother had been executed during the war. Yeah. Well, we spoke about this earlier. These are 3 separate buildings that they reside on the same spot in Padungan. The Tan Mansion was there, a very classical Chinese style building. It then became the Odeon when it was bought over by Tan Sri William Tan at that time. He built the Odeon, the Odeon Cinema and Arcade. And after that, when this was pulled down, it was vacant for many years until later on this building came up. So you see, on the same piece of land, across the decades, across the generations, so many different things have happened. Number 8, Riverine Condominium. I'm sure you know where it is in Katana, right? I attended a Chinese dinner there not that long ago as well. Very nice place, very beautiful. Somebody I know lives there. Basically, but you realize that Riverine Condominium Britana is sited where there were 3 sheds like this, which were blacksmith sheds run mainly by the Hakka. You don't think Hakka, who migrated to Sarawak and they specialized in blacksmith trade. And it's quite sobering to now walk through Padana, Jalan Blacksmith, and you see all these modern buildings, all the shops, all those residences, very little history. I was asked. Number 9. You recognize this place? It hasn't changed that much. This is Song Kien Hill Road. Yeah, I think Hok Hai is somewhere here. In 1942, in the second year of the Japanese occupation, a Japanese Zero fighter actually crashed. They used to like to do these demonstrations to show off, to show off their power, the dexterity of the Japanese pilots. And one day, one crashed right there. Yeah, and according to the reports, it was cleared up within 3 hours. Not a single trace was left. At that time, there were no shops, of course, because when it went down, it sliced through a couple of coconut trees, straight down, and they did their best to hide the evidence, basically. Okay, so that's number 9, and number 10 is if I ask you about the rivers of Padungan, very few will be able to name it. I counted 4 rivers. There could be more, but 4 are confirmed. The first river is Sungai Kuching, which we know flows between Tokekong Temple and what is now the Chinese Museum. That's the first river. It's been covered up, canalized, and all that. The second river, I'm sure very, very few people know, is Sungai Kra. Sungai Kra is at the end of Jalan Tanjin An. You know, I went there and tried to look for Sungai Kra, and you can see at the embankment, it's a little bit ingress. You can see it going in a bit. It's so overgrown that unless I hire somebody to cut down the grass, I don't think you'll find it. But Sungai Kra is featured on many of the old maps, so it's the second river. The third river is Sungai Padungan. Sungai Padungan is now, you might think it's a longkang, basically. It flows next to the Tanak Market. Tanak Market, when you look at the side, there's a big longkang there. That's Sungai Padungan. And in the old days, Sungai Padungan went all the way to Central Road. You know, under the big roundabout at Padungan, the river still flows under there. You can see old photographs with somebody driving a speedboat across that area. Yeah. And the fourth one is Sungai Sekama. Sungai Sekama flows next to Crown Tower. Crown Tower is now a big longkang again, where it goes in. My friend was telling me that her parents or her grandparents used to own a sago factory, which is exactly on the spot of the Hong Leong Bank on Sekama Road. You know, at the traffic light, there's a Hong Leong Bank there. And they used to be able to pull the sago logs on the river all the way to that factory at that spot. So means the river flowed there, and it flowed further down as well. So these are histories that you don't know, you may not even realize it's happening right in front of you. So that's the Padungan that I learned about, that's the Padungan that I remember, that's the Padungan I know today. So basically I shared with you some photographs and some stories about Padungan yesterday. This is Padungan today, high-rise buildings, the CAT, the iconic MBK's building, still quite a lot of nice shop fronts, which I'm very thankful for. What is Padungan tomorrow? I think my message is basically what is Padungan tomorrow depends on what we want Padungan to be and what we choose to preserve and what we choose to demolish. I think there's a lot of history in this area. I think it's about tradition and culture that needs to be made known. So I hope that this book goes some way to sharing some of these unknown facts about this area.